Welcome everybody to the Michigan Historic Preservation Network September webinar. My name is Xiaohan Bao Smith. I will be your moderator today, and we are going to hear about an introduction to the Michigan Main Street program. Before I turn it over to our speaker, I would like to go over some Zoom items. If you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box as you think of them. All the questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. The chat box will be used to share links or resources discussed during the webinar. And please participate in the survey after the webinar concludes. If you don't see your Q&A or chat boxes, please wiggle your mouse. They should show up at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If this is your first time attending our webinar, we are the Michigan Historic Preservation Network. We support the sustainability and economic vitality of Michigan's historic places through advocacy, education, and direct action. We could not do the work we do without our members and volunteers. If you're not a member yet, please consider joining us at www.mhpn.org. Our webinar series is supported in part by an award from the Michigan Arts and Culture Council. It is my great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Ling Yan, today. She's an AICP, and she's a senior Main Street specialist of the Michigan Main Street. With that, I am going to turn it over to our speaker. And please go ahead and share your screen.
All right. Well, thank you so much for MHPN for having the Michigan Main Street program today. I'm here to talk to you about an overview of what the Michigan Main Street program is and how it helps communities revitalize and continue managing their downtown districts. My name is Lee Young. I'm the Senior Main Street Specialist, and I've been at Michigan Main Street for almost 8 years in my capacity helping communities get into the Michigan Main Street program, and then also helping communities with things like strategic planning, volunteer and fund development. Laura Krizov is our manager, and then we have 2 other staff, Josh Prusik and Jill Tremonti, as Main Street specialists focusing on economic vitality and promotion. So I'm going to start talking about the Michigan Main Street program, and like was mentioned, if you have questions, please populate them in the Q&A and we can talk after the slides are over. So Michigan Main Street is part of the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. And I like to share this slide because it really talks about how Michigan Main Street works with the MEDC's strategic focus areas. So we really help communities in the develop attractive places, marketing the state, and supporting small business categories of the MEDC's strategic plan. So I just like to show this to share where Michigan Main Street fits in the state's economic development strategy. We are affiliated with the National Main Street Center. The National Main Street Center was established in the 1980s, and it consists of 45 state, city, or county coordinating programs that provide technical assistance to over 2,000 communities nationwide. The movement really grew out of the decline of vibrant downtowns due to things like suburbanization, shopping malls, and big box retailers that were taking over communities in the 50s and 60s. The National Main Street Center and Main Street America really have paved the way for the renaissance of healthy, vibrant downtowns throughout the entire nation through establishing the Main Street approach in the 1980s. And you can see that through the reinvestment statistics that are collected yearly by our local communities. So these reinvestment statistics are shared annually by Main Street America, and you can see that over $100 billion have been reinvested locally through the Main Street program. 175,000 new businesses have started in these districts with 782,000 net gain in new jobs. 335,000 buildings have been rehabilitated and 35.3 million volunteer hours. So these reinvestment statistics are really critical for us to understand the economic impact that Main Street organizations have locally, statewide, and nationwide. So Michigan Main Street then was developed and exists to help communities create Main Street districts that attract residents and businesses, encourage local investment, and build community ownership over their traditional historic downtown commercial areas. Michigan Main Street became a coordinating program of the National Main Street Center in 2003. So last year we celebrated our 20-year anniversary. And in partnership with the National Main Street Center, we provide tailored technical assistance to Main Street communities. That technical assistance can be anything from a branding package to a communication plan. We do have business recruitment strategies and market data analysis so they can understand the economic realities of their traditional downtown. We also provide board development and training, as well as executive director development and training. We do retail merchandising and small business support technical assistance as well. We do have 2 grant programs that Main Street communities are eligible for. First is our Match on Main Small Business Grant Program that provides up to $25,000 for small businesses to either expand their physical space or their inventory and or their point of sale system and technology upgrades. We also have our Main Street Vibrancy Grant, which is a grant program that provides grant funds to Main Street communities to do any sort of vibrancy improvement within their districts. And that could be something from a public space project to flowers, banners, bike racks, benches, parklets, to business incubator or business accelerator program. So really anything that that community thinks is going to add vibrancy and vitality to their Main Street district will qualify for our Main Street Vibrancy Grant. Main Street impact in Michigan is very impressive in terms of the revitalization or reinvestment statistics that we have our communities collect on an annual basis. So just last year, we saw over $17 million in private investment, which was coupled with $9.6 million in public investment. And that was seen over 144 new businesses and 144 facade and building improvement projects. But I really like to highlight the 40,000 volunteer hours that is dedicated directly to making Michigan's downtown and traditional commercial districts better. This program doesn't exist without volunteers, and it really is a grassroots community-driven effort for downtown revitalization. We have 22 communities that participate at the highest levels, at the select and master level, but we have about another 11 that are participating at the network or engaged levels, and I'll talk about the level designations in a second. So the Main Street framework is, like I mentioned, a community-driven economic development strategy that encourages downtown revitalization through both historic preservation and stakeholder engagement. Main Street is rooted in historic preservation because without historic preservation, we are not maintaining the authenticity and uniqueness of our state. It also relies heavily on stakeholder engagement so that organizations really truly understand what the community wants to see for the vision of their downtown and also get involved in making that vision a reality. We have several guiding principles. First and foremost, the Main Street framework is a comprehensive approach to downtown revitalization and management. We also work on leveraging existing assets and partnerships. So this is where the historic preservation component comes in. It's all about leveraging the existing physical assets through the building stock or the key amenities that a community has, but then also working with partner organizations to leverage the resources that they can provide for small business owners, property owners, and things like that in the community. It's a self-empowerment program, and what we mean by that is that we provide training and resources to the community, but it's really then up to the community to take the training, resources, and technical assistance that we provide and implement it in their community. The program is also incremental. We realize that community economic development does not happen over time, and really it's about setting the community up with a series of small steps or small projects that over time are going to make that catalytic change. It's also about quality change making, so we highly encourage all of our communities to use Secretary of Interior standards when rehabbing their historic properties, and to be making sure that all of the changes that occur to the historic properties and within the district are quality, using quality materials that are appropriate for the types of buildings that they have. And last but not least, and I think honestly most importantly, the program is implementation based. So we tell our communities all the time that it's not enough to have really great plans for your community, but more importantly, it's really important to implement what tactics and strategies are included in those plans. So we work with our communities all the time on setting up a structure to be able to implement the plans that they do have. So the Main Street approach consists of three integrated components. First and foremost, we work with the community to establish a vision for their Main Street district. We also then work with them on providing market data so that they can understand the market realities within their district. This provides a foundation for future redevelopment. Once the community understands the community's vision and the market realities, we then work with them on selecting a transformation strategy, which is really just a fancy way to say an economic development strategy that's going to guide their programming, planning, and investment within their downtown district. Once they have their focused strategy, we work with them on identifying implementable goals and then also programming partners and the capital that they'll need to implement their strategy, but ultimately implement the community's vision for their downtown. We also work with our communities on defining measures of success so that they can track the impact they're having in their districts over time. The Main Street approach also includes the Main Street 4 points. So every one of our communities works on projects and programming in all of these 4 areas, and that's how we maintain that the program is comprehensive. So our communities are working on projects in economic vitality, making sure that they're strengthening the existing economic assets while also identifying opportunities for new development and growth. They work under design by leveraging the unique historic character to create those inviting districts that attract visitors, residents, and businesses. Under the organization point, organizations are working on cultivating partnerships and also coordinating resources around that shared community vision for downtown. And then lastly, under promotion, communities work on communicating the value and vitality of their downtown through marketing and promotion efforts, but also events. And then they work with potential investors and key stakeholders. When a community is getting started in the Main Street program, we ask a series of questions to ensure that Main Street is right for their community. So those questions consist of, does the community's potential district meet our standards for a traditional downtown or neighborhood commercial district? Those standards are that the community has 20 or more lot line buildings that are primarily zoned or used for commercial purposes and that are 50 years or older. And then we ask, is historic preservation important to local citizens and stakeholders, as historic preservation is a key tenet of the Main Street approach? We then ask if downtown revitalization is a community priority, if they want to leverage human and financial resources in support of downtown, and then also if public and private sector stakeholders want to build broad-based community support for downtown revitalization. We have a lot of training and resources for prospective communities that can help with building broad-based community support and with leveraging human and financial resources. So a lot of the times communities are working on building those particular areas, but first and foremost, the community has to agree that downtown revitalization is a community priority in order to get started. So our program has 4 levels. We just this year created the network level, which is our no commitment level for communities that are looking for additional resources, but not full Main Street designation because maybe they lack capacity or desire to be fully designated. We have the engage level then, which is 1 step up from the network level, and that's for communities that want to be on track to full Main Street designation. These communities have an organization that is working on downtown revitalization and has financial capacity to eventually hire a full-time executive director. Communities at this level complete an application for the participation in the select level. The select level is a 5-year commitment, and that is for communities that are dedicated to implementing the Main Street approach. And at this level is where the communities receive specialized third-party technical assistance for downtown or district revitalization. After the 5 years at the select level, if a community is successful, they can move up to the master level. This is for communities that have met the national accreditation standards set by Main Street America, in which all of our technical assistance is meant to help the communities reach at the select level. They receive more sophisticated technical assistance, and they also have the opportunity to mentor other Main Street communities. This is a 2-year commitment, but communities can submit their commitment every other year and stay with us for as long as they'd like to partner. We've had communities that have been with us since the program started in 2003. This is the Main Street participation checklist. So I just like to highlight the steps for a community to be able to get started. For the network and engage level, the first steps are to complete our community interest form, which can be found on our website, as well as complete our downtown scorecard, which is also a brand new tool that we started using to help communities identify priorities for their downtown revitalization efforts. They also submit progress reports due June and December annually, and these progress reports are half-page documents that just ask questions about the status of their downtown in order to help us build a relationship with the communities at these levels. Engaged level communities also have to go through our online training series, attend downtown forums that we host annually, and then also identify or establish that local Main Street organization and district. Then to get to the select level, like I mentioned, they complete a select level application, hire the full-time executive director, maintain an active downtown or district board, ensure there's a dedicated budget for downtown transformation. At the select and master level, communities also submit progress reports due to us monthly, and that's where the reinvestment statistics that I talked about earlier in this presentation come from. They also attend our workshops and national conference and then meet the national accreditation standards set by Main Street America. For the select level, they have to meet those by year 5, and then for the master level, they meet them every other year. So when a community is getting started with the engaged level, like I mentioned, we have the Main Street online training series. This is provided at no cost and it's online for communities, free and easy to access. So we have some best practices and outcomes that we see from this training. First and foremost is we tell communities not to solely rely on one staff person to complete the training, but instead aim for at least 80% of their local Main Street organization board to complete the training. So that way everyone can be on the same page when establishing their Main Street framework locally. We also help define roles and responsibilities for Main Street organization and potential partners during the training. We provide strategies to help them recruit, engage, and sustain volunteers. We provide and develop tools to help them implement fundraising strategies to fund their local Main Street program. And then ultimately, they learn about Main Street best practices through real world examples that we share from all of our communities statewide. We get asked all of the time what the value of Michigan Main Street is. And really, first and foremost, it provides a framework and proven methodology for revitalization. The Main Street approach also helps communities increase foot traffic and local spending, making their local districts hubs for social and economic activity. We also allow communities to proactively manage the market rather than rely on external forces. By providing that market data, communities can really begin to see who their customers are and what the economic realities in terms of businesses are for their district, so they can begin to say yes or no to types of development that are going to meet the economic realities, but also their community's vision for downtown. We provide access to support and tailored technical assistance with outside experts, and also an access to national network of communities and resources. The Main Street approach really helps communities drive economic growth by helping revitalize businesses and attracting new investments, which locally creates jobs and boosts the local economy. And lastly, the Main Street approach really helps cultivate a sense of belonging and pride within these communities. We have a lot of resources to help communities that are available on our website, free to access through our Michigan Main Street Solution Center, which is also a new resource that we just launched in 2023. The Main Street Solution Center is broken down into 8 categories of preservation. So each one of the 4 points is distilled down a little bit and has 2 key parts. So I'm going to show you the downtown scorecard and go through each one of the 8 categories. So the downtown scorecard is broken out into the 8 categories of the Solution Center, starting with the business category. The scorecard for each category has different performance measures, and it's a self-assessment for communities where communities can rate themselves based on how they feel they're performing in each performance measure, starting, evolving, and excelling. So the business category really shows performance measures for and best practices for how to support local businesses within their districts. Next is the real estate category. So communities can rate how they feel they do with development and their development process locally. Next is the events category. So this would fall under the promotion point of the Main Street 4-point approach. This allows communities to understand their event strategy and to make sure that their events are driving economic impact. Marketing is the next, also falls under the promotion point. This really shows best practices for communities in terms of marketing and promotion, but also social media usage and different communication tactics. For the design category, we've broken it down into preservation, which has several preservation performance measures, but then also place, which has several place-based performance measures for communities. And then last, for the organization point, we've broken down the scorecard into capacity of the organization, which really talks about, does a community have enough budget? Do they have annual strategic planning? Do they have different line items in the budget that support their transformation strategy or their strategic plan? And then lastly, the people category. So does the organization have enough volunteers? And also, do they have different best practices for board and executive director leadership? The downtown scorecard is available on our website for any community to be able to use. It also then ties directly into the resources that we have on the Solution Center. The last page of the scorecard is the organization overview. So communities can tally up the totals for each one of the 8 categories and see which categories they're most successful in and which they might need to focus a little bit more on. We also ask 3 questions of the organization so they can assess what their greatest strengths are, what their challenges are, and then also list 5 priority action items to focus on. And I really like to use this tool with communities that we work with for strategic planning efforts. So every year, the organizations are looking at what are their 5 priority action items that they want to work on. Like I mentioned, the scorecard then ties directly into the Solution Center. So there are several ways for communities to use the Main Street Solution Center. First is to start by completing the entire scorecard and identifying your area of need. Once you identified the category that you want to work the most on, say it's the business category, you would then look at your business category results and go directly to the Solution Center and click on the business category dropdown and find all of the resources related to every performance measure in the business category. The second pathway solution is to identify a pre-identified area of need. Say it was real estate development. You would then complete the scorecard for real estate section, look at our Solution Center for Real Estate Development 101 and find our webinar series. And then the other one would be hunting for a specific resource. So that would be if you needed a social media strategy, you could just easily go onto the Solution Center and look at our resources for social media. So lots of different ways to use the Solution Center. It's not that complicated, but we wanted to put together lots of different resources so that communities could easily find the resources they were looking for. The last part of our presentation, we're going to show you some technical assistance highlights. So just to show you a little bit about what technical assistance Michigan Main Street does provide to communities. The first is our branding service. So this is the brand that was completed for downtown Wayland. Wayland is the Dahlia City, or historically known as the Dahlia City. So they created this beautiful community painted mural on the left of your screen that you're seeing. And so our brand consultant put that into their logo so that the community could know it's a talking point of, hey, did you know that we were the Dahlia City? And by the way, this is what our mural means, and here's how it's tied into our brand. They also then tied it into alleyway art as well as banners and local products for dogs. They have t-shirts, they have hats, and really nice water bottles. So business owners have really taken this logo and started selling products that then share the destination brand with the community and visitors. This is another example of branding for Rogers City. They really wanted to showcase that their city is for all seasons because it's a northern community, so there's always the perception that it closes down in the winter, but in fact it doesn't. And so we made sure to tie that into the branding. They then created banners highlighting each one of the 4 seasons, and then also we showed some different wayfinding signage that can be completed on a lighter, quicker, cheaper type implementation. This is a highlight of our market data snapshot. So this is an example of some of the market data that we provide to our communities, and we update this every other year. So the market snapshot shows basic demographic data, but then also shows those market traits with the retail surplus and leakage data. And then we also show psychographic data so that communities can really dive into their customer behaviors and preferences. Communities then use market data to do things like our business recruitment primer. So through our business recruitment primer, we provide strategies to our communities to effectively recruit businesses. Part of that strategy is to create property cut sheets like you see here, and also business resources for new businesses that are coming into their community, and a community profile page that highlights unique things about the community as well as some of that demographic data. One of my favorite technical assistance that we've provided is our storytelling series. So we've worked with Phil Ike out of Bay City. He has a company called Storyville Social, and what he does is he interviews community stakeholders. These are business owners, community leaders, board members, and he just gets their story about why their community is important to them, why their business is important, why they're there. We've then used those stories on social media to highlight the people that make the community. This has been one of our most successful social media campaigns that we've done. And it really just showcases the people in our community statewide. So highly recommend you check out our storytelling series. It's available on our website. We also have a downtown future service. So this is a downtown planning type service. So we've done a couple of different ones. One in Grand Haven and Charlevoix focused on specific properties throughout their downtowns. And then we have a landscape architect that puts together different renderings and iterations of what could potentially be on those properties based on what the community's priorities are. So in Charlevoix, the priority was housing. And so the architect and planner worked on looking at what types of housing could fit on the different properties that were available. In Grand Haven, it was a hotel. So the architect put together a scheme for how a hotel and market space could fit in the property that was identified. In Niles, we did a public space project. So they've been working on their Niles outdoor node. And so we put together outdoor hub concepts for them based on community input and feedback. The Niles node is actually under construction starting a couple weeks ago. So it's super exciting to see it come from these landscape architect sketches to now full fruition as they started construction just a couple weeks ago. This is another project that we do. So annually, we provide our communities with impact reports. So this is an annual report that we provide directly to all of our communities. You can see that their reinvestment statistics are highlighted, as well as some of the demographic data and district data. And then we allow the communities to put 4 projects that they're most proud of as project highlights. And then one big spotlight project. We also include a business owner and a volunteer testimonial so that community members can see who's, again, involved in the community and why they're involved. We have the communities talk about things like their social media connection and their social media reach, and then what their budget is, so that when they're asking for funders and sponsors, they can be transparent with that information, but then also show sponsors how many people their events reach and things like that. So this is provided to our communities every single year. Wanted to show some vibrancy grant updates. So this is a vibrancy grant project in Lapeer. Lapeer worked on chess tables and murals, as well as trash cans and wayfinding signage with one of their vibrancy grants. And these are how they turned out. The murals are really cool because they're community painted. So each one of the squares is done by a different community member. And then at the end, they're all put together and then blown up on the like postcard type mural that you see there. Another vibrancy grant was from downtown Owasso. They started an ambassador program, and so they gave gift cards to community members that were willing to participate in their hype team. And the hype team went out and patronized businesses and then posted on social media about all that the community had to offer. This is a really big trend in downtowns right now. And in fact, we paid for a couple other hype teams just this year. In Lapeer, actually, they're doing a Hype Hound program where they're going to give little dog bandanas like you saw with the Wayland photo and then have people post about bringing their dogs downtown because they're a big dog owner community. So I'm really excited to see how that turns out. Another vibrancy grant that we helped pay for was the Middle Village Micro Market in downtown Lansing. So this is their business incubator slash accelerator program that they have where they work with local business owners in a market type setting. So there's about 5 businesses that each own their own corner of the store with their own products and services. And then they get different entrepreneurial trainings throughout the entire year, from branding to financial, how to do your financials and your business plan, all in the name of helping them potentially open up their own bricks and mortar after they spend time at the micro market for 15 months. It's been a really successful program. I think they're on their 4th cohort starting later this year. We also helped Downtown Lansing fund their holiday market, which was a test for a couple years. So just another way to support business owners in the holiday season. It also activated one of their parks for the holiday season. So with that, this is all of our staff. Again, my name is Lee Young, and I just wanted to provide all of our contact information in case you had questions following this presentation, or in case your community or someone that you work with might be interested in the Main Street approach. They can always reach out directly to our staff. So with that, I'll stop sharing and we can see if there's any questions.
Thank you, Lee, for your presentation, and it's great to see what all the resources and tools available for communities that they can use in any ways that you find helpful. So we do have quite a few questions in this Q&A box. I will just read them to you and we can go through all of them. Okay, first question. Do all states have a Main Street program that ties into the National Main Street Center, or is Michigan unusual?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are, like I mentioned, 45 state, city, or county coordinating programs. So not every state has a coordinating program. There are several states that don't have a coordinating program. And so that means that their communities might be individually participating in Main Street America. But Michigan's not unusual in that every coordinating program of those 45, Michigan included, has a direct partnership with the National Main Street Center.
Okay, thank you. Next question. So Sault Ste. Marie was one of the early communities to participate in the Michigan Main Street. Is that correct?
Sault Ste. Marie actually started joining the program in about 2017-18. The most early Michigan Main Street communities are Boyne City and Niles.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. Okay. Next question. So the Main Street approach seems to have been very consistent over all these years. And what are some of the changes made, if there's any?
Yeah, so the Main Street approach actually has been very consistent in terms of the 4 points. In about 2017, Main Street America and the National Main Street Center did an evaluation of if the Main Street 4 points were still relevant, if the Main Street approach was still working. And what they found was that the 4 points are absolutely still relevant to maintaining comprehensiveness in downtown revitalization and management. But what we were seeing was that the 4 points were siloed. And so that's where the transformation strategy approach came in. So that diagram that I showed that was like the circle and the journey, that is relatively new in that we just started using transformation strategies about 6 years ago. The thing that's maintained consistency, though, is the Main Street 4 points, in that all of the projects that communities work on fall within those 4 points. But now they have that focused economic development strategy to make sure that all projects and programs are working towards something, as opposed to just doing projects underneath the 4 points without having an overarching strategy or framework to guide them.
Thanks. Next question. With so many people working from their homes, has it helped traditional downtowns? It's a place for at-home workers to go to get out of their houses.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I don't have like a great answer that's backed up by data, just anecdotal. I think actually one of our communities, Charlevoix, when they were participating in the program, had a remote worker transformation strategy to try and help support and bring remote workers to their community. And they actually started a co-working space in their downtown so that remote workers could come in into the downtown, work together, and then go and have lunch and things like that. So I absolutely think that having remote work has helped downtowns, because we're all looking for that third place. The concept of third places to go to a coffee shop or a gym or wherever else you might spend your time besides home and work. And if your home is your work, you're definitely looking for somewhere else to go. So I think that has helped a lot.
Great, thank you. Next question. The Michigan Main Street program really helped downtowns pivot during the pandemic. For example, closing the downtown on the weekends to allow for outdoor dining, and what strategies were really good and have been continued?
Yeah, that's also a really great question. So, I think the best thing that has occurred from the pandemic is a lot of our communities are shifting away from being the event organizers to now recognizing that they need to be the economic developers for downtown. So during the pandemic, instead of worrying about all of the events because we couldn't really gather, our organization shifted to being able to provide support, mentorship, and resources to the small businesses, which without the small businesses, your downtown isn't successful. And so that strategy has maintained since the pandemic has been over, in terms of our organizations are now really focused on business support and entrepreneurship support. Another thing that I think helped was the social district legislation. A lot of our communities have put in social districts, and that has just helped maintain that vibrancy and vitality after the working hours of 5 p.m.
Hey,
and
cool.
helped with the outdoor place-based infrastructure and things like that.
Okay, next question. Is it smart to have a local historic district ordinance in place if you are a Main Street community?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, it is smart to have a local historic district ordinance in place if you're a Main Street community, because that is the only thing that provides teeth to historic preservation. Under the design principle, we're always working with our communities to create design guidelines and things like that. But if it's not backed up by that local historic district ordinance, then you can only go so far with design guidelines in terms of making sure the property owners are aware and educated about the benefits of historic preservation for their properties. But local historic district ordinances help ensure that there's teeth behind that. It's obviously a local decision what they decide to do. And regardless if there's a local historic district ordinance, there are tools and strategies that communities can do to make sure that they're getting the preservation of the buildings and the type of development and rehabilitation that they want to see.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Which Michigan Main Street downtowns are also listed on the National Register of Historic Places? Because then they can have access to the 25% state investment tax credit for qualified rehab expenses, and also the 20% federal investment tax credit.
Yeah, that is a perfect question. I don't have the exact number of communities that are listed on the National Register. I want to say it's at least 50% of them, if not more. We are actively working with our communities to either become registered on the National Register or become part of the Certified Local Government Program, because of the benefits that that program also offers for historic preservation in our communities and can potentially help them get registered if they're not. We do have a lot of communities that have buildings that are individually listed as well, which can then qualify for those historic tax credits that were mentioned.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Do you provide cities with a list of designers that specialize in preparing design guidelines and facade improvement strategies? If you do, how can designers be part of that technical assistant list?
Yeah, that's a good question. We actually don't have a technical assistance provider list because we are state of Michigan government. But what we do is we rely on the Michigan Historic Preservations Network provider list. So anytime a community asks us for a particular consultant or things like that, we always rely on MHPN's list.
Hey, yeah. So our we have a HRC directory, which is a Historic Resource Council directory on our website. I will type into the chat, the link to the chat in a moment, so you can take a look. Okay, next question. How does the Oakland County Main Street program fit into the Michigan Main Street program?
Yeah, great question. So this is a clarifying question. So I mentioned there's the 45 state, city, or county coordinating programs. Oakland County is actually the only county coordinating program in the entire country. I used to work for Main Street Oakland County before I came to Michigan Main Street. So we have a very robust partnership with Oakland County. Oakland County, just like Michigan Main Street, provides technical assistance, training, and resources with communities in Oakland County, and they have their own partnership with Main Street America. But we do try to coordinate on certain trainings and resources that we provide. So just working in partnership and making sure that all of our communities can have access to some of the workshops and trainings that we have.
Okay, next question. Do you have an awards program?
Yeah, we used to have an awards program, but what we were finding was that it was very expensive to put on. We do like to highlight the great work that our communities do, however, and so what we've started doing is creating case study documents. So we have about 6 case studies that we've completed so far with the plan to continue on. And so those case studies will be highlighted on our website as well as the storytelling series. So that's how we're highlighting our communities now, is by doing case studies of the different projects and programs that they're doing.
Okay. And a compliment from the audience, kind of related to the previous question. The audience said they can always tell when they are in the Michigan Main Street community because they are the best traditional downtowns.
Yes, I 100% agree. I think that our Main Street communities put in so much time and effort into making sure that visitors and residents alike have a great time. And I totally agree that they are the best communities in Michigan to visit.
Okay, next question. What kind of assistance do you provide to get housing introduced into the second floors of the downtown buildings? Is the lights on downtown?
Yeah, every one of our communities, when they first come into the program, does a building and business inventory of the first and upper floors. So that's how we can understand, and the local community can understand what their true vacancy rate is on the second and third and fourth floors. So once we know what the vacancy rate is, then we work directly with our community development managers at the MEDC to educate the property owners on the incentive dollars that MEDC has for building rehabilitation and upper floor housing as well. So really, we work in partnership with our team at MEDC to make sure that everyone understands the different incentives that are available for housing development.
Okay, I think we have one last question about downtown parking. So are there anything that you do or recommend or for downtown parking issues, or are there more people walking or biking to get to downtown these days to release the stress for parking?
Yeah, we do have a lot of communities right now working to install bike racks and make sure that their infrastructure for biking safely and walking safely to downtown is there so that people don't have to drive. But really what we do for parking is ensure that every community has a parking management strategy, which entails having signage to point to where parking is. A lot of the times parking problems are that there's plenty of parking, it's just people don't know where to park. And so it's really about educating community members about where to park and then also training them that it's okay if you can't park directly in front of the business you want to patronize, but instead walking down the block is number one, healthy for you, but also not inconvenient because in fact you can stop at other businesses along the way. So it's really just about community education.
It's very true. Okay, this is a very great program, and we learned a lot, and I think we have answered all the questions. Just let me double check. Okay, there's one more. Okay, how do you keep your elected officials in Lansing briefing about the success of the Michigan Main Street program? They must be able to see that the program fits all kinds of communities and don't need big mega grants and appropriations.
So with our impact reports, every one of our communities, then we've done trainings on how to talk to their local elected officials. We encourage them to bring local elected officials to actually do tours of their downtown districts and talk about the projects and programming that they're working on and all of the work that they're doing, contributing to the economic vitality and success of their particular communities and that elected officials area. We also work in partnership with the Michigan Downtown Association to do a legislative day. So communities will actually go directly to the Capitol for the legislative day and talk directly to their elected officials. Main Street America has also started doing a Capitol Hill Day where Main Street communities from the entire nation go and talk to state or federal legislators about the effects of the Main Street program nationally. So that's just a little bit about the advocacy that our communities are doing on their own behalf, because as a state organization, we cannot educate, but our communities can.
Okay. I think you have answered all the questions, and we want to say a big thank you to Lee and also Laura for putting the webinar together for us. And before we let everybody go, I would like to just quickly announce our next webinar. It's scheduled for October 17th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and it's about deconstructing the past from farmstead to nature preserve. And hope to see you all next time. And just a reminder that this webinar is being recorded. The recording will be available sometime next week, and you will receive a link to the recording when it is available. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us, and hope to see you all next time. Thank you, Lee, for your time again.
Thank you so much.